It's 4:30. So I get Jack to sit down here. Darn it. All right, I guess we're ready. This special call session meeting of the City Council is called to order. If everyone please stand. Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you. Asking that if Councilman Mark Showalter lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. This special call City Council meeting is a roll call, please.
Mr. Allen?
Here.
Mrs. Wilkins-Brent?
Here.
Mrs. Butcher-Conway?
Here.
Mrs. Hambrick? Present. Mr. Hampton?
Here.
Mr. Showalter?
Here.
Mr. Stone?
Here.
Mrs. Tack? Here.
Approval of the minutes.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion is made.
Second.
Second. Motion made and properly second. Are there any further discussion or questions as to the minutes? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say likewise. At this time, we have the Kentucky Product Developmental Initiative, KPDI program and application overview. Jack Carter, but we're going to let Councilwoman, Counselor to take care of that.
Not a councilwoman, thankfully. So Jack and I are going to kind of work together to tag team. You know, you'll notice that all three of these resolutions are related, but thought it was really important that the council get a full understanding of the program and what these local and regional projects actually contemplate. So Jack, if you don't mind, I'll kind of tee up the first one, and then I'll bring you up here to talk through the actual site project. And so this one you all are familiar with. We've talked extensively about what's the future of Lanes Run Business Park. When will the third phase be completed? The council completed phase 1, and then the city and county partnered for phase 2 and the infrastructure improvements there. And now we're at the point where we're ready to take on phase 3. So this Kentucky Product Development Initiative program allocates $2 million, up to $2 million to each county. So all 120 counties can achieve up to $2 million. And it could be multiple applications that achieve that funding, but it's a dollar-for-dollar match. So if you want to achieve $2 million for your county, you're going to have to, in some way, put $2 million on the table. So that's the really basic overview of that program. So looking at the first resolution and the project that goes with that, Jack has estimated that, in consultation with engineers, that we can build out phase 3 for about $3 million. And knowing that a $1.5 million PDI application coupled with $1.5 million in local funds would be how that application would be structured. So the first item works towards phase 3 of the business park, with the county providing $500,000, the city providing $500,000, and Scott United providing $500,000. So City of Georgetown investment of $500,000, end result, $3 million infrastructure improvements to complete the business park. I think it does say this in the resolution, and Stacy can speak to it further, but actually the city's $500,000 already exists. It lives in the Lanes Run Business Park account. So when phase 2 was completed, Stacy transferred all of that cash over, and any remaining funds in there can be applied to this. So we don't think there's any additional, or we know there's no additional allocation required. It already exists in that account. So that's very good news. But I'll step away for that. So that's that first 1.5 million of the 2 million that Scott County could be granted is for this application. And I'll let Jack talk a little bit about that project.
So you have my proverbial maps. So you'll see that the acreage we're talking about is on phase 3. Is due east of Toyota. It's 72 plus or minus acres. The beauty of this project, if you look at the north side of the map, there's actually some parcels there that are part of phase 2. It's about 15 acres. I like that because there's infrastructure on Enterprise Way, but yet we can bring in those two pieces as a part of the 72, because in the past, number of months and year, I've had a significant a number of clients that have requested for me to answer an RFI, and most of those have been in the 35 to 40 acre area, and I don't have that kind of land. So I've lost one. I keep mentioning this particular one. It was a pharmaceutical manufacturer. So that's the kind of stuff that we would like to have in our park in order to diversify and build out that foundation that we already have with automotive. So this application is for, just as Devin said, for 1.5, of which the it's 1.5 from us. And as we get the full $3 million, my engineer right now is actually working and got a design today, a conceptual design for what we want to do there. It will be relatively simple. Kind of look at the map and visualize a road going down, somewhat down the middle, with a cul-de-sac kind of at the end to allow me great flexibility in terms of going right and left with lots. The one on the left, quite frankly, would give me something in the 35, 40 acre area, which is what I'm looking for. We do have some areas that relate to floodplain. We have a detention area that we're going to have to worry about, but that's just all that's all part of the process. So I think I could stop it right there and leave it there. One other thing I would like to say, though. Judge Covington is here with us also. When we presented to fiscal court, I did have a question concerning what do you think your return is going to be? Very difficult to do a return on investment without having the job, the capital investment, et cetera. However, I've done a preliminary one on this one, so I will be able to do one on this as well as the next two, the next one we're going to be talking about also. But I'm very, very comfortable that there is going to be a strong return on investment, and that's why the PDI program makes an awful lot of sense. It's not like it's free money, but it is free money. So let me stop it right there.
Are there questions? Yes.
If you were to look into your crystal ball, if this is approved, the infrastructure on phase 3, looking into a crystal ball, making a prediction, if the economy doesn't change dramatically in the next year and a half to 2 years, maybe 3 years, how long do you think it will take to have that phase 3 that it's going to be?
Quicker than you might imagine, and we discussed that also at fiscal court, and that is you're aware of the significant investment that Toyota just announced, which is a part of the Reborn project, and we've talked an awful lot about in planning and zoning about hydrogen and things of that nature. So we're very, very comfortable that with this we can build this out relatively quickly. The timetable, by the way, real quickly. Applications go in a week from Friday. Then we have a site visit in August. At final determination will be right around November, and then you start all the legal work. We're not going to be able to, I can get all my engineering work done beforehand. Once the application's in, I can start incurring costs. But I would think we could build it out within a year after that. So I think it'll move very, very expeditiously is your answer. And then if we look at the second tranche that we're getting ready to talk to you about, there's more opportunities there too. So let's just stick with this one for right now. I'm comfortable.
Jack, if I could, out of all 3 phases,
Yes, sir.
how much land is sold and how much is still available?
Sure.
And if you don't know that, that's.
Oh, yeah, oh, no, I have it. Yes, sir. That question was also asked at fiscal court. The initial question was how much land to begin with, and I did go back and look at the master plan, so it was a little over 400 acres. So as of this date, now this does not, as an example, Blue Run Spirits is a good example. We've sold the property. We're nowhere even near closing on it. But to date, we've sold 188 acres. We've generated about $4.5 million, almost 1,000 jobs. So we have, based upon my calculations, right around 75 plus or minus acres left. Doesn't include phase 3, but it does include a small area just on your map. Due right of that, 36 acres. It's got some significant water challenges that we have to mitigate. That's another 36 acres, but I think I can do something with that. So that's a long answer to a good question.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Of the 72 acres, how much is that is buildable?
That's the reason I'm trying to get that. I think almost, well, if I add the 15, then I think I'm talking 70, 75 that's billable. The problem is right now, Alonzo, on the far left side, that's where lanes runs down. That's flood.
Right.
Then I have to take out, as I indicated a minute ago, a detention, on-site detention area. On all lanes run, we have to hold the water before we release it. However, north of that is the detention area for like Commonwealth Tool Machine. I might be able to use that. It's hard to answer that until I get deep into the weeds with my engineer.
And have you looked at the infrastructure cost, or is that what the engineer's doing?
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. My cost for phase two, not mine, our cost for phase two is about 45,000 an acre. I don't think in this particular case we're gonna be there, because my strategy is to build the road, bring in the infrastructure along the road, stop it there, and all you have to do is shoot off. That's my thinking. But I don't have those. I've already hired somebody to do the preliminary work, and we're paying for that out of Scott County United.
Jack, did you say the cost will be your cost will be 45,000 an acre?
It cost, no, I'm sorry, it cost me, from an infrastructure
Yes.
perspective, 45,000 an acre on phase two, yes.
On phase two?
To put, yes.
Will the cost of these lots to your clients be
Oh,
the same? Or
That, we haven't determined
You
that.
haven't determined.
We're selling for 25 an acre in phase one. Phase two is 35,000. So like Blue Run Spirits, that's 35 an acre. Country Boy was 25. Their option they took was 35. So I'm thinking that this price will jump a little bit.
Okay.
But bear in mind, we're talking about a PDI program that's going to give us great value, so that we don't have to worry about creating a cost that's prohibitive, because it's not, the land's not the deal. The deal's the jobs, the capital investment, the ad valorem taxes, et cetera.
Right.
I'm going too long on it. Okay.
Thank you.
Couple more questions.
Sure, yes, sir.
In terms of the sale of these lots, will they be split between city and county?
Yes, I'm sure we'll follow the same principle that we did on phase two, that all those lot sales, well, there's actually, I'm gonna let you address that, because it's,
Yeah, and so some of you all were on council when this happened, but we entered into an interlocal agreement just for phase two. So if and when the engineering is completed and this is about to come to fruition, I would assume the city and county would enter into the same kind of an agreement, an interlocal agreement, whereby the capital investment, which the county's already investing $500,000 through this application, we're investing $500,000 through this application, final construction cost, we'll enter into an interlocal agreement to share all costs, and obviously we're both benefiting from the revenues, because it is city property. So I would foresee it taking the same form. It probably will look a little bit different because that investment was a little bit higher. Again, there was no PDI money, so as opposed to a $500,000 buy-in, I think both city and county were on the hook for maybe $6 or $7 million. So I think was it $13 million or so project for phase two. So that we would still enter into an interlocal agreement, I think, just for those finer details. But I hope that answers the question.
It does, thank you. And the other question I had in terms of diversification, I know you've talked about automotive, and we are very heavily dependent on automotive manufacturing. So diversification in jobs is going to be critical. I know Toyota's made that announcement. We got to support that, but continue to look at diversification.
that's why I throw out the pharmaceutical. It's only because of that same, we've had opportunities that are non-automotive. I would also, at the same time, you've heard me say this a lot, crankshafts, international crankshafts, a prime example. They supply Toyota cranks, but guess what else they do? They supply about 45% of all North American cranks to other people. So that's also a part of the diversification strategy, is you just don't want to do Toyota, you want to do other automobiles, but you're right. Greg knows that for sure, about crankshaft.
Are there any other questions or further discussion?
Do a separate motion on this one?
Yes, each one.
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Hampton,
I'll second it.
second by Ms. Brent. Motion is made and properly second. Are there further discussion or questions? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise.
All right, so like I said, I'm sticking to that theme of that $2 million because I don't want this to get confusing or down in the weeds. So that's our local application. So $1.5 million to Scott County is off the table. We've got $500,000 left. and this is where the regional application comes into play. You all will see I gave you a revised resolution. I'll get to an explanation of why that's revised here in a minute. You'll notice the only change is the dollar amount being dedicated or committed. Want to thank Judge Covington for being here. Judge Covington, Jack, Mayor Jenkins, and a lot of these regional partners have been engaging in these conversations for a little bit now. I think at the interlocal committee level, it got brought up many months ago, but a lot of conversations have evolved since then. You'll see the reference to Bluegrass Alliance partners. I won't try to name all the counties, but that's the Madison County, Bourbon County, Fayette County.
Franklin, everything contiguous to Scott, to Fayette, with the exception of an outrider, which is Montgomery.
Okay, so just kind of that central Kentucky nucleus of partners looking at a good opportunity to capitalize on this PDI funding for regional opportunities. The state wants regional projects. They want to invest in regional projects. So that's where that conversation is stemming. What can we do to invest and get that leverage and get the state to come to the table to invest in our communities? And obviously there are a lot of details to be ironed out there, a lot of unknowns, but I'll give you some of the knowns to start out. So of that $500,000 that we have left, the city and county would split that, so dedicating $250,000 of local matching funds to meet that $500,000 to bring that money to the table. Now, I referenced Bluegrass Alliance. I don't think it's a secret. I think the fiscal court talked about it in open session. Obviously, everything is subject to the approval of the legislative bodies involved here, but the people at the table are Madison County and some of the cities within Madison County and Fayette County. So those are the Bluegrass Alliance partners that we're primarily dealing with, but like I said, nothing is committed until approved by their bodies as well. So not here to speak for them, but in these conversations, Madison has committed their full $2 million to this regional project. So they're willing to put $2 million on the table and allow their county allocation to come to this project. We've only got the $500 to do that with, but we're doing the same thing. And Fayette County has, like I said, subject to approval, has come to the table and said, originally, we don't have a project in mind. You can have our $2 million, but you got to find the matching money. So instead of leaving Fayette County's $2 million on the table, Madison County has suggested we'll cover some of it, and maybe you all can cover some of it. In the meantime, Fayette County has promised some more of their money to another project. So that's why that number decreased. So $1.25 million of Fayette County's money is on the table. Half of that will be matched by Richmond, Berea, whoever in the Madison County region, and the other half would, if approved, be matched by Georgetown, Scott County. So that's why that number has been decreased from $750,000 to $562,500. Still, the goal there is we're trying to capitalize on our remaining $500,000 that we can bring to Scott County, and we're trying to bring more dollars to the table by essentially an untapped allocation in Fayette County. So that's the very broad explanation of where these numbers come from. Now what is the project going to look like? Where is it going to be? Great questions, semi-unknown at this point. I'll talk a little bit about the mechanism to achieve revenues, though. So the goal, if this 30,000-foot view plan would come to fruition, there would be a separate taxing district established whereby, based on a number of factors, including your investment in the project, things like that, all of the partners in the regional initiative would be achieving those payroll taxes, essentially, and any other lawfully implemented taxes or fees. So if we've got, we'll make it simple, if we've got 4 partners at the table, everybody's equally invested in this huge mega site project, obviously you want to take into consideration the location. If it's located in Scott County, we're gonna bear some additional costs. Georgetown, Scott County will, based on infrastructure improvements, public services. So you're always gonna have that off the top. But then from that point, the revenues are shared under that agreement, essentially. And that's the part that I'm talking about. That's so many more details to be ironed out. That's very remote. All we're doing today is saying, hey, we're interested in moving forward with this application and learning how this partnership could work. Every approval in the process will come back to the council. It will come back to the fiscal court. This is simply an expression of the council's intent to participate as a partner and learn more about this, because I know I'm oversimplifying that, but until we get an application on the table and understand what the state can bring to us through the PDI program, what they can bring to us through other programs based on the regional initiative, it's all very preliminary. There's only one part of this that is not preliminary, and that's the need to have either contracts to purchase property or option contracts for the property. So we're obviously not going to talk in open session about any specific properties, whether in Scott County or Madison County or anywhere, because that would jeopardize the project and jeopardize the cost. But that's your third resolution in the packet tonight, is essentially authorizing or committing to sharing the cost of purchasing those option contracts. We can't even submit this application without identifying potential properties and having some right or some kind of ownership interest in those properties. And an option contract, the purchase of an option contract, satisfies that need for the application process. So I kind of lumped those two in together. I know I've missed some details. I can let Jack speak to the larger project if he wants to. But like I said, this regional approach is something that's been discussed. We're doing the regional branding and marketing with the Bluegrass Alliance partners. I know that was committed in the budget this year. It's been discussed. Jack's worked with Ted Abernathy extensively to look at how can we impact from a regional level and bring business to Central Kentucky. And Ted has identified essentially our identity in terms of our economy, and we're going to take that as a tool and build off of it. But this application is a goal. Judge Covington said it a number of times. I've heard we don't want to leave money on the table. How can we get that money in our communities, and how can we use that money to leverage getting more money to build something that probably nobody in this room will see come to fruition unless you want to be an elected official for 15 more years. But it's a first step towards getting this kind of an initiative in our community. I use the phrase mega site. I do want to circle back to that. A mega site is classified, is it 500 acres? So you'll notice like Lanes Run Business Park doesn't qualify as a mega site. This would be a larger scale project, but when you get that mega site designation, that's where the money starts to come. So I'll stop there, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions. Glad to field those if I can.
So if we have to have a vote to approve this as an intent.
So the two different votes, there's one that actually allocates money, and there's one that says, yes, we're supportive of being a matching partner, provided that we're going to have to approve it again when the award is made. So that first resolution that commits, it says, in support of the grant application and subject to the approval of each governing body upon award of the KPDI funding, both the fiscal court and city of Georgetown would commit $562,500 in matching funds, so that we could get the remaining $500 for our community, and then that $1.25 from Fayette County's allocation. So this is just like any other grant application. I'll put it like that. Any grant application where we require a match, the council approves it, and then you have the ability to reject it ultimately once awarded. So that's what the first resolution is. So I think these have to go hand in hand, because if there's no intent on the first one, the second one dies. And so the second one, we've engaged Mayor, Judge, Jack, and I, and Stacy have had conversations about what it looks like to get out with these property owners and start talking, and kind of assigned a dollar value, a not to exceed, essentially, to give that negotiating power to say, hey, can we get you on the line for 12 to 18 months here so that we can submit this application and be prepared to purchase this property with the PDI dollars. But the application can't be submitted absent these. It's either an option contract or a binding letter of intent, which I don't think is a really viable option. Or you can have an actual purchase contract, which that would be significantly more expensive than investing in the option to purchase.
So it's no guarantee that it would be here in Scott County?
There is not a guarantee. We've identified potentials in Scott County. There have been potentials identified in Madison County. The cost-sharing model, there's a chance there could be multiple sites.
Okay, different sites.
And
Okay.
that's the...
Is it a benefit if we were to be the host site or one of the?
I think there are a lot of benefits to being the host site. There are obviously some drawbacks. I think the part of this that's going to take the longest is negotiating the terms of this. Like I mentioned that off the top cost, if you assign an arbitrary number, this is how much the host county is going to get off the top because of the burden we're going to place on their infrastructure. That's going to require, borderline need like an actuarial to be involved in that to understand what kind of actual costs you're going to incur, because that long-term percentage, that's great, but it's hard to predict that impact. But also, you're bringing a number of other tertiary benefits to your community. So I think there are benefits both directions, but that's the thing with a regional approach. It's hard to get outside of your Georgetown, Scott County box and think, even if it's not here, it is a benefit to the region, as long as our interests are being adequately protected and as long as there's advocacy at the table to make sure that we are getting what we've invested, we're getting the benefit of the investment, and we're not, there aren't any lingering impacts that we haven't considered.
Thank you.
I've listened to everything you just said. I know we can't talk specifics, so I'm gonna try to ask this question in a different way. And it's kind of on topic, but kind of off topic, but it follows up to what Mrs. Frank just asked. If Lanes Run, if there's a good possibility now that Lanes Run could be built out within the next 2 years?
2 years, 2 years. Well, I gotta build it first, so it's probably 2 years, but you could build it out after that, yes. Quickly, expeditiously, I think, yes.
Yeah, I know you can't talk specifics, and I'm not necessarily asking that, but what's the next step when Lanes Run is built out?
That would probably be what we're just talking about.
Well, I mean, so that's being discussed. That's an ongoing discussion that's been going on and will continue to go on.
Absolutely, I
Whether
didn't want to go into great
happens or
detail, but Devin just said, this is all a part of what we invested time, energy, and money with Ted Abernathy for our economic development strategic plan. It isn't just about Scott, it's about the region, but it's simplistic. Judge says you've got to have product. We don't have product. Some other communities don't have product. Fayette doesn't have product, but they do now. They have 200 acres, $250,000 an acre, but that's not real product. So that's kind of out. But yeah, that's what we got to have.
Jack, let me ask it kind of similar. If it's not selected in Scott will continue to look for additional sites. Once we're not going to stop and say business park is full, we're done. We didn't get the mega site, we're done. We're continuing to look at sites.
That's exactly what I would say.
Yes.
Yes. I just think there's not. I don't think we're in the weeds here. I just think that to me, and the judge agrees. I know the judge agrees with me. It's all about this collaborative effort that we've never ever been able to achieve. So this is the first step in an effort to pull together, cognizant of what the issues are. The analogy I always use is this one. People are so sick of hearing this, but it's the truth. If there's only 35% of the people at Toyota that live here, so what advantage is it to you all as generators of revenue for the 65% that don't live here? Why? You're getting occupational tax, and you don't have to pay for anything else. Not pay for services, fire, police, none of that you don't have to pay for. So I think the regionalism concept has worked really well here and will continue to work as we can build ourselves out. But you got to build product. And you got to have the infrastructure in place for that to happen.
Jack, I don't know this, and I'm sure you do. Are there other regional models
Yes.
in the state?
Yes, ma'am.
That
Yes.
we've looked at that
Yes.
have worked well?
The models have worked well. I think the challenge is going to be that special taxing district and how you pull that whole thing together with equity and all of that. That's going to be a tough one. But bear in mind too, I said this to a couple of council members. We won't probably get approval on this till November.
Right.
Then the real work begins with the cabinet and Department of Revenue, and then that's where the rubber's going to meet the road, specifically as it relates to how we. My recommendation is always going to be an industrial foundation of some sort. That's Jack though. That's just Jack, because it gives you greater opportunities to do some other neat little things with revenue, like revenue generation stuff. So anyway, yeah, it's been tried, true, and it can work. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I won't get into too much detail because I'm not by any means an expert on it, but Jack's talking about this industrial opportunity. There are a lot of different bonding opportunities that come with that. And I mean, we're talking about what, I think we're at like $7.5 million with all the money at the table for this regional application, but we're talking about $13-14 million worth of just property acquisition, and what, 45,000 an acre for development? So, I mean, this is a $70 million undertaking. So this is just step one, and having that industrial mechanism will allow financing opportunities within the regional group.
Question, I guess, for Devin or Stacy. At what point in this process are we looking at having to do a future budget amendment? Do we
I
know?
think, I mean, of course, I'll have to maybe defer to Jack on when we'll actually start paying, but once we know our application's approved,
Which Jack, I'm sorry. which
and it
Jack
will
said
come
around
back to
November?
you for acceptance, that's when we would put it in the budget. And at that point, I usually just carry the money over until we actually have to write the check. So so it could be November, I guess you said.
I'm guessing you're talking about, if you're worried about expenditures,
Yes.
Yeah.
probably your budget 24, 25. That's what I think.
Right, it'll be allocated in order to, express
Can it earmark
acceptance,
it?
even though we're not the applicant, the county is the applicant, but, to earmark it in the budget, probably late this year in this budget cycle, but actual expenditure, not in this budget cycle. Be shocked.
Okay.
Devin, will you hit the numbers one more time, please?
Yes, on just the regional one?
Yes.
Okay, so just talking in terms of our numbers, or you want to talk about the whole project?
The Madison, Fayette, the whole project.
Okay, and I'll repeat it one more time, all subject to their approvals, but Madison County has dedicated their full $2 million to this, so they've got $2 million of PDI funding at the table. They've got $2 million to match their $2 million allocation. They've got $625, and I can send you this in a chart later as well. They've got $625 for their portion of Fayette County's money. So Madison County's total investment, if approved, is $4.625 million,
And how much is,
including their PDI allocation.
how much is Fayette's? Is Fayette's too, or is that?
It's 1.25 million that they've said you can have 1.25 million if you can find the matching funds. And so that's where that 625 from Madison and or the cities in Madison County and the 625 from Georgetown, Scott County comes in. And so Scott County's PDI funding, $500,000, 250 city, 250 county, and then 1.125 total cash match for R250 and for the half of Lexington's. So like I said, I can get that spreadsheet. Talking in terms of total investment, our dollars dedicated are $562, $500. But total, assuming all the PDI funding is granted and all the local match funding goes in, we're at $7.5 million total that's in a pot for this regional initiative. And like I said, I'll send you a little chart later. I didn't think it would make sense without the discussion occurring, but I can send you the chart that Jack shared with me earlier today.
So do you need a motion for B?
Yes,
B and C?
you can do B and C together. Let's just go ahead and do them separate. Yeah, B is essentially the authorization to move forward with the application process, knowing that another budget amendment and approval will be required to commit the funding.
I'll make a motion on B.
Second, right. So a motion has been made and properly seconded. Are there further discussion or questions? All those in favor of this motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say likewise. Motion carries. Next, the resolution approving matching funds for Scott County Fiscal Court, purchase of option contract in support of KPDI regional application.
Motion,
I'll make a
Mayor.
motion. Oh,
Okay, motion is made,
I'll second.
properly second. Are there further questions or discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say likewise. Motion carries. Next, council comments. All right, we're gonna start this time with Mr. Allen.
No comments today.
What are you doing after for?
Since you, that way, we'll go that way.
There you go.
All right, sorry, Mrs. Brent,
I don't have anything.
Ms. Conway,
Do not have anything.
Ms. Hamper,
I'm good.
Mr. Hampton,
Good.
Mr. Showalter,
I'm good.
Mr. Stone.
Had enough to save on Monday, I'm good.
And Ms. Tackett.
I'm excited about the project. Good job. I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. So if there's no other further business for the council, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all very, very much. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Sorry, my hands are cold. Thanks, Jack. Aren't you glad you're here?